that. Oh, wait, it's waiting a second. Hold on. All right, now we should be live for the Steelers Depot Monday live stream. Let me go ahead and pull it up on my end and let me mute my own self too. There we go. All right, we are here for the Monday, October 5th live stream. Myself and Dave Bryan answering your Steelers questions for the next hour as we do every Monday. Dave, how you doing? Thanks for being here.
Doing good. Ready for this? We got a doubleheader tonight.
Yeah, it is. It's 7 o'clock. Is Chiefs Patriots right? They're the first
It's
game
coming on right now.
right
Yeah,
now.
yeah, coming on CBS right now. So we got the Patriots facing the Chiefs, and the Patriots facing the Chiefs without Cam Newton,
Mm,
without Sony Michelle, and I think without a guard too. I think Shaq Mason's missing this one, so this
dang.
one might not. If you're looking forward to watching the Patriots get stomped, you probably picked the right night. And then obviously in the nightcap you have the Packers hosting the Falcons, which I think you think might be wind up being closer than what many people are expecting, right?
Yeah, I had Atlanta in an upset. Do we know if Julio is playing? My fantasy team needs to know if Julio Jones is active. I guess
Yeah, I
they're not
don't
in
know.
yet. Maybe they're not
Yeah,
in
I
yet.
don't guess they're in yet. Hello, humans in the chat. Thank you for joining us. Peace and love.
Yeah, make sure if we have any audio issues, I'm sure we're okay, but let me know if you're not hearing anything, and we will answer your Steelers questions. I know coming off the sudden bye week, there isn't as much to talk about as there would be when we're coming off a game. Kevin says Julio is active, so thank you very much, Kevin. All right, but we will dive into the questions nonetheless to answer everything on your guys' mind for the next hour. Thank you for everyone who's here. Steeler fan 1933, K Jackson Pittsburgh, Russ, Mutated Genome, Colin, Mark, Kevin, Danelle, Patrick. I think it's everyone here right now. First question of the live stream comes from Mutated Genome. He says, are we finally at a point where we should take Cleveland seriously? They are 3-1. They had that thrilling shootout victory and staved off the Cowboys' comeback yesterday. Yeah, I always take Cleveland seriously. I think AFC North are always competitive games, and their rushing attack is among the best in football, even if they're not going to be with Nick Chubb for a couple weeks, including the Week 6 game between the Steelers and Browns. But Cleveland looks like they can definitely present a real challenge this year.
Fungible, fungible.
Well, what to me, what isn't fungible is Bill Callahan, the offensive line coach, and the way that Mike Munchak brought so much value to Pittsburgh. I think Callahan is bringing it to Cleveland.
Oh yeah, definitely with the be able to kind of the different run scheme, blocking schemes up front, and morph them together. Look, we knew this offensive line was going to probably be it had no choice to be better than what it's been
Hmm.
probably since the days that they had who was the guard they traded away to the Giants along that was playing
Kevin
alongside
Zeitler.
right
Was it Zeitler or
Zeitler.
was he in Cincy? Maybe it
Mm,
was Zeitler. Maybe I'm second guessing myself.
uh,
I know what you're saying though.
You're confusing me right now, but I'm trying to think of the guard that they traded away. Anyway, along with that played alongside Joe Thomas here. This is probably the best combination of line that they've had
Hmm.
since then. And Callahan is a very good offensive line coach. And I think the thing that you saw now, look, Dallas has got a lot of injuries there, and especially at the linebacker backing core. Their secondary, they're just not good tackling team overall. So to say they compiled, what was it, over 300 net yards of rushing, right?
Hmm.
Against the Cowboys. I think they're a good rushing team, and I think they're going to be a good rushing team even without Nick Chubb. And I think we saw that yesterday. I mean, Kareem Hunt, the other rookie or second year play, whatever he is, Johnson or what was his first name?
D.
D.
Ernest.
Okay, Dearness. Yeah.
Right.
They look fine now. We're going to find out what Cleveland is in these next 2 weeks, right? Because Indianapolis probably they have the fewest yards allowed, I think, of any team in the NFL, and it might be closing in on record proportions as well too through the first 4 games. So that defense is a lot better than people give them credit for. And then obviously the Steelers and their defense, and specifically their run defense. So has Cleveland done well to date? Yeah, but they did lose to Baltimore out of the shoot, and the teams that they beat have been the Bengals, the Washington football team, and Dallas. So much like the
True.
Steelers, who have beaten teams that with a combined record of what, 11, 1 and 11, right now.
Hmm.
Well, I think the jury's still out on Cleveland. Now, their defense, I don't think is all that. I think their offense is going to put some points on this board, on the board. But I think quite honestly, I think it's a little bit too early to know exactly what Cleveland is and isn't as a complete team right now.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think you summed that up really well. But we'll find that challenge out in just a couple weeks whenever Pittsburgh plays Cleveland for the first time this year. But they're definitely an improved team. There's no doubt about that. They're a team, I think, on the rise. A lot of young talent, a lot of weapons. The pass game too, with Odell Beckham Jr. and Jarvis Landry, and Austin Hooper caught his first touchdown yesterday. So there is a lot of talent in that team. And again, if you can run the ball effectively, especially as weather gets bad in December, I think you're going to have a chance to hang around. And so the AFC North will be competitive. To what degree will Cleveland truly be competitive? Will they still be in third place? Probably, but they're not going to be pushovers like they have been in years past.
I tell you, they got a nice post bye, really post Steelers schedule. Quite honestly, they play the Bengals, then they play the Raiders, then they have a bye, then they have Houston, Philadelphia, and then the Jaguars.
Mm.
So they better win some games,
Hmm.
you know.
That is not murderer's row for sure. Let's see. A couple questions here from Patrick. Hey, Alex, why has the secondary struggled more this year compared to last year? I would say we're 3 games in, and I would say that the high bar they sent last year was probably just going to be difficult to attain again. So I think there's been some regression with the secondary, but I kind of couch it in the context of regression to the mean, where they just weren't going to play at that unbelievable level they played at last year. And we're seeing offenses across the board in the NFL put up points like we haven't seen before, even compared to last year. So I think there's still a lag for defenses as they adjust offenses without a preseason, without some of the summer and spring work that they're accustomed to. And so maybe offenses have that advantage kind of heading into the start of the year as defenses figure out teams on tape and what they want to do and the changes schematic and personnel that they're making. But I'm not freaking out about the Steelers secondary right now. I'm not implying you are either, Patrick, but I do just want to say that out loud. Let's see. K Jackson Pittsburgh. Hey guys, do you believe that there will be any punishment to the Titans for not adhering to the NFL COVID-19 protocols? Dave, I know you tweeted out the list of new protocols and adjustments to everything from the league today. And what's your take on the situation?
Well, A, we don't know exactly if they have, obviously the opinions are that they weren't following protocols to a T, but let's not mark them guilty just yet. I mean, we don't. There's no specifics. All we know is that there's an investigation between joint investigation that the NFL and the NFLPA are doing. Whatever they do find now, and Alex and I talked about this on the morning podcast. You could probably go around all 32 teams right now and find that protocols weren't being followed to the T. Now, whatever the Titans, whatever they find the Titans in violation of, do I think if they find any violations, what do I think is going to happen? I think you're going to see a nice fine
Hmm.
on them. Plain and simple. I think you'll see, I don't know, quarter of a million maybe fine or something would probably be anywhere from a quarter million to half a million, probably depending on severity. If indeed they find anything, that'll be the slap on the wrist for them. And pretty much as I predicted on the podcast this morning, uh, there's going to be this meeting that which went on today. They released a new set of memos, kind of, hey, these are the protocols, the enhanced protocols. If you guys don't adhere to them, and we find out there's going to be hell to be paid, kind of shaking your fist at them, kind of thing. And that's exactly what's going on. It's still going to take a lot for a forfeit to happen. We've never had. I mean, when's the last time a forfeit has happened in the NFL?
It's a good question. I do not
You
know.
know, I don't think there has in 100 years. So with that, look, this is uncharted territory. You'll probably should they have adhered better to protocols? Absolutely. I think all 32 teams have probably gotten lax to some degree right now. What I think will probably happen, though, I mean, look, we just saw the Raiders get fined, for off team property type stuff.
Hmm.
If they find the Titans in violation of something, yeah, I think there's going to be some sort of monetary fine, and then we'll see what happens moving forward here with punishments. But it's going to take a lot for a forfeit to happen. I still think.
Yeah, I agree. And we saw coaches get fined for not wearing masks properly. That was what Gruden, Fangio, and someone else that got fined 100K. I think a week two, and Gruden's still ignoring that for whatever reason. The short answer I would give you, K Jackson, is that there could be a punishment, but it will not be significant to affect the Steelers, aka that's not going to be a forfeit that a lot of fans are clamoring for. That's just not going to happen. I know the NFL did threaten that today in their updated protocols, that and taking away draft picks, and that's possible, but it would take some sort of clear, negligent, and malicious intent to hide or flout the rules that would require such a heavy-handed punishment. So that's not going to be a factor, I think, for Tennessee this time around. All right, next question here comes from, once I scroll up and find our next question. Kevin says Eagles Steelers score prediction. Wait till Friday's podcast. Kevin, I want to watch the Eagles some more. I don't know which direction I'm in this early in the week, but we'll talk about that on Friday's episode of the Terrible Podcast. Dennis Sheridan, hi Alex and Dave. Can you guys get me a Missy Matthews bobblehead doll? I don't have
Get me
that
one too
power.
if you find it.
Yeah, don't have a good answer for you there, Dennis. Other than
uh,
I'm not capable of that. Wes says if you haven't heard, Bill O'Brien has been fired. Were you surprised by that, Dave? I was so surprised. I guess how early it's happening in the season.
No, I put on the Twitter machine yesterday. It won't be long, and I didn't
Hmm.
think it'd be this quick, but here we are, And I think Eric Bieniemy, who we're watching the Chiefs right now, their offensive coordinator. I think that's the guy. That should be the guy. Look, yeah, I don't. Bill O'Brien's kind of, you had to wonder going into this season if he didn't get this team, have them right in the thick of things right out of the chute. He's made some weird decision as a general manager, on top of everything else. And man, if not for them having a franchise quarterback right now, that franchise would be in shambles because what have they already given up next year, draft pick wise in 2021? They don't have a first or a second, right? Is
Right,
that right?
Miami has him now.
There you go. Maybe he'll go over to Miami and join that coaching staff. I don't know. No, I'm not surprised at an 0-4 start. And Alex and I were just talking, this morning on the podcast about that as well too. Uh, Good thing they have Deshaun Watson. I mean, if you're in this, if the way that franchise is right now, if they didn't have the franchise quarterback, that I would hate to be a fan of that team.
Hmm.
But at least you have the franchise quarterback. You could probably work with it too, right, Alex? I mean, you give me the franchise quarterback, I could probably work with something, not having that first and second round draft pick. So no, not surprised. I think 0-4, right time to make sure you get yourself in a proper position to look at a lot of players right now and in prime position to make a run at whatever head coach hire, which I think might be Eric Bieniemy.
And Bieniemy definitely deserves it. I think, yeah, Wes is saying that he deserves it. He does. He's been interviewed. He's a great offensive mind. He's done a great job in Kansas City. So hopefully this will be the year for him to get that opportunity. Before I ask you a quick question, a follow up, Dave, I do want to shout out Ivo G. He says, hey guys from Bulgaria. I am a 3-year listener and finally
Woo!
caught you live. I'm going to bed though. So just want to thank you for about getting me through the last 8 months. Good night. Just want to shout him out before he logs off for the night. Thank you, Evo. Really appreciate it. Ivo. I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong, but we appreciate your listening all the same.
Not that we don't appreciate our U.S. listeners, but it's kind of eye-opening, when you hear people that far away,
For sure.
that kind of thing. So thanks for checking in there.
And hopefully you can make some streams. I know there's a whole time zone thing, and it's probably very early in the morning over there. But we definitely thank you for listening. David, go back to the Houston. I mean, guys, I've seen people say that well, it's not an attractive landing spot because they don't have the draft picks and the roster's got some question marks. But to me, you got Deshaun Watson. That's more attractive than a lot of other teams that'll be searching for that franchise quarterback, even if those other teams have a first round pick.
Man, just give me the franchise quarterback.
Hmm.
I'll work my way through the rest of it.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just crazy to me that Bill O'Brien was fired before Adam Gase. I guess that's where my surprise comes from.
Yeah, what's the hurt? I mean, Gates probably not going to be too far behind
No,
him.
he's dead man walking for sure. Just a matter of when, not a question of if. But just I guess the only excuse you could make for Houston was they had a really tough start to the schedule. Obviously, Week 4 was a big disappointment to drop to 0-4, and I think the locker room starting. Well, did JJ Watts have a moment today? I didn't. I saw a headline. I didn't listen to it. Was he kind of angry? Understandably.
If you like press conferences with like forward answers, it was the perfect one.
Hmm.
Look, he's not happy. He's asking questions. What do you do about fixing it? And he don't know, or else he'd fix it. Look, the guy gives his all. The guy's tired of losing. He pretty much probably knows at 0-4 that this season's over with. He's not a spring chicken anymore. The guys suffer through. There's a lot of expectations for Houston going into this year, and they're not reaching them. So, yeah, it was an uncomfortable press conference to
Mm.
watch. How about that?
All right, good word to use. Get back to Pittsburgh. Chris Black says, hi, Alex and Dave. Hey, Chris. Recent talk of the Steelers getting Sam Darnold after this year. Juju recently said he would love to see it happen. Thoughts? How possible is this, Dave? And I'll pull up the article now. I know you
Pull it up.
outlined the idea of why that is very unlikely to happen anytime soon.
First and foremost, just the cap and the cost. I mean, look what. Let me pull up Sam's contract for you real quick while you pulling up that article there, and I'll run down the specifics real quick here
Yeah, the
on
article
him.
up on screen now. I'll scroll down so you guys can see it. You can
All
just
right.
search Darnold if you needed to find the article again.
All right, here's the thing with Sam Darnold. Okay, 2021, he is scheduled to earn, let's see, a total of looks like 920,000 base salary, and he's got a roster bonus that is due to him on August 1st, which even though it's due on August 1st of 2021, it still goes against the cap because it's likely to be earned there of over $3.8 million. So you got roughly about 4.8 or so, 4 point, let's see, yeah, about 4.8 or so $1 million in salary. That's just too hard to fit up underneath the cap with the Steelers situation next year. So not only is it just hard to get him to be your backup at earning nearly $5 million salary, what's it going to take to get him? A draft pick of some sort. The Jets would be absolutely foolish to deal him away for anything other than a second round draft pick. Okay, and let's even assume you got past all that. You were able to afford him, and his nearly $5 million that he's set to earn. You went ahead and you gave up the draft pick for him. You would have to go ahead and assuming you did this in the offseason ahead of his fifth year option being due, you would have to go ahead and exercise and pick up his fifth year option for 2022. That's not going to be cheap for 2022.
Hmm.
And then you're at the situation, what if you have extended Ben at that point? All right, you can't have a quarterback making that kind of money in 2022 on your bench, along with Roethlisberger. And then, oh yeah, what are you going to do after 2022 then? If you don't have him under contract, are you going to franchise tag him, having him hardly played snaps for you there? There's just, I've got, I haven't even I can't even get you past even acquiring him because of the cap situation in 2021.
Hmm.
Even assuming that you were able to do that, you're not going to be able to afford him past then, especially if you extend Roethlisberger. Now, the only way that such a thing can work is if Ben is either cut or retires after this season. That is the only way that you go about making something with Darnold in Pittsburgh work.
Well,
End of story. End of story. That's it.
Well said. Yeah, it's hard to add cap in a year where you're shedding cap as much as possible, and so it sounds good on paper. I will add that to the list of quarterbacks that sounded good on paper, but ultimately did not happen. I think Darnold's now like 35th on that list of the last few seasons. Dallas Quinley, more dangerous, Eagles run game or Eagles pass game? Is this a Dave Bryan yes type answer to this? I'm not sure which way to go on this one. I'll guess the run game because they have Miles Sanders back healthy now, and but that pass game, the receivers are so hurt. It depends on how healthy these receivers are. Jalen Rager situation, I think he's going to be out again. I think that Deshaun Jackson's maybe got a better chance to return. They do have some tight ends in Dallas Goddard and Zach Ertz, but this Eagles team is just so banged up right now. It's really hard to get a read on them until we have a better feel for their health status and injury report.
Yeah, let's see what happens with some of these wide receivers they're missing. I mean, because they were definitely hurting in that department there. Their running game's okay. I don't think it's going to pose any problems, or it shouldn't pose any problems for the Steelers. So
Hmm.
I would say that I would be more concerned. And once again, we don't even know who's going to be practicing for them, who their tackles are going to be in this game, or anything at this point. But just off the cuff here, I'd say I'd be more worried about their passing game because I just don't view their running game against the Steelers front being any sort of a problem.
And they do have speed at receiver if and when they get healthy. The question is, will they have an offensive line that will protect long enough for those receivers to get open on some 7-step drops? A guest, what do you think of the way the Steelers are utilizing their running backs? Do you believe McFarland will continue to see more touches? I'm happy with the rotation. Into the latter question, yeah, I think McFarland will see about 10 to 15 snaps per game. David, I know we've talked about that on the podcast, and definitely bringing in an infusion of speed and big playability to a backfield that is generally power guys like James Conner and Benny Snell. Are you happy with the rotation at running back?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think they're doing. Oh, look. I mean, the whole thing is you got to be careful with James Conner and the usage on him. And I think we knew as time wore on that McFarland would work into this thing somehow, some way. And we saw that start in week 3 there. Obviously, not a fan of putting Jalen Samuels in there on short yardage. You and I talked about on the podcast. I can deal. I can do without seeing Jalen Samuels at Wildcat and Jalen Samuels at in short yardage situations moving forward here. But otherwise, I think okay. I think the successful run rates are okay to start with, and I'm kind of excited to see and what a turnaround this is. You know, let's talk about the running back position and how we didn't think that this team needed to draft a running back, and lo and behold, the type of running back that they got has got my stamp of approval now after the fact. I'm excited to see how they kind of continue to implement McFarland into this thing moving forward. Do I think he's going to be a 14 touch game kind of guy? No, but I think you can get him on the field for 12 to 13 snaps and get a football in his hands 6 or 7 snaps, along with some conglomeration mixture of James Conner and Benny Snell.
Yeah, I agree. Question from Wes. I'll direct it to you, Dave, and then I'll jump in after. Should it be a concern that it seems that the lack of crowd noise really benefits offenses combined with Pittsburgh still not hitting 30 points against 3 of the worst teams on their schedule? So I guess it's an overall question about concern about the Steelers' offense and where it's at. How would you answer that, Dave?
Look, it's still early in this. I mean, would I have expected them maybe to have busted 30 once already? Yeah, possibly. The key thing, obviously, is having more points than the other team at the end of the game. So, I think that goes without saying as a captain obvious kind of statement there. Uh, let's hold off on the panic here because we're talking about this, and I wrote this up this morning in talking about that 30-point streak and yada yada. It is significant because it is the longest streak in the NFL. I get that. That's why it's worth writing about. That's why it's probably gotten the traffic that it's gotten so far. But let's not forget that Ben Roethlisberger is a big reason for that, and he only played 6 quarters last season. So this offense is still, I think Alex and I, the best way to describe what we have seen so far is kind of clunkiness. You know what I'd much rather, what streak I'd rather see in first, Alex? I know you know.
Is it the first drive streak? Which would
First
go a
drive.
long way to getting you 30 points in a game.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. How about let's get both of those taken care of against Philadelphia here. Let's get that opening possession drive streak knocked out with a touchdown there. And then let's see what happens there. Now, if we get, 3 or 4 or 5 more games into this thing and they're averaging 23, 24 points a game, obviously the win is the most the thing that you care about the most there. But yeah, then probably some reasons to some concern there. But Ben's still not going to rust off, so to speak. Let's look at it this way: the Steelers preseason is now over with.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I would say that obviously, first of all, they've been close to 30 in all 3 games. They were at, what, 26, 27, 28, if I'm remembering things correctly. So they've been right there. And the fact that they've been able to close out games, haven't gotten these big shootouts, for example, that have forced you to put up 30 points. So I think had the game circumstances been a little different, this team would have surpassed 30 points already. So again, the offense has not been perfect. There are some red zone efficiency things to still clean up. Maybe you want to get a little bit better on third down, some drops, some turnovers, stuff like that that's still plaguing this team. So there are things to work on, but I'm not that concerned about it, even as dubious as this streak looks on paper.
No trophies come with that high point total either.
But
So
if you
yeah,
want
I
to win
mean,
a trophy, you better put up some points versus a Chiefs team, for example.
right. You better be able to score when you need to score.
Hmm.
When your defense is not there. I've always been a fan of. I think defense is obviously having a good defense goes a long way in winning a Super Bowl. But on top of it, there are games in a Super Bowl season. Especially going back last 10 or 15, these teams have had to rely on the opposite side of the football to win them, a couple of games in those seasons, and sometimes even in the playoffs. I think I'm a fan of even saying at least one or two games during a playoff run a team has. the other side of the football, whatever their least dominant side, usually has to win them one or two of those games. And
Yep.
I think that would be the same this year. So yeah, you most definitely, like I said, let's treat what has happened right now as preseason. Let's see what happens in these next 3 or 4 games.
All right, next question here, and Pablo says, "I'm still in shock. Alex knows SpongeBob canon, but wasn't sure about Batman. That's just my youthful self there, Pablo." K. Jackson, Pittsburgh. Will Deontay Johnson be available to the Steelers against the Eagles? We don't know for sure because no injury report has been released yet, but it certainly looks very likely that's going to happen. He was in practice today, so good sign there for Deontay. Daniel or Danal Babar, do you think the Steelers management is encouraging players to avoid crowds, to avoid being affected by COVID-19? Yeah, I'm sure that's been reflected from the league and from Tomlin in the front office and coaches since they reported to training camp at Heinz Field back a month and a half ago. So I think that's been the mantra. We heard Bud Dupree, Steven Nelson, Chase Claypool talk about how basically they go to practice and they go home, and that's about it. And that's probably the best advice I could give any player right now is just to don't go outside unless you're going to practice because that is the best way to mitigate and lower the risk of exposure.
You know who seems to be the great young player poster child for the Steelers and following the COVID rules?
Who's that?
Anthony McFarland Jr.
Is
It
he
seems like he always has a mask on.
good?
I know he did during training camp and his Instagram post. I don't know if he's still it doesn't come to mind recently on that, but for a while there, I thought, man, that kid really is paying attention and making sure to keep his mask on and stuff like that. I just found that kind of humorous.
Dallas
I,
Quinn?
I I don't know what they're telling the team, so
Yeah.
I mean, obviously
I
I
mean, I'm
can't
sure they're
can't
advising them
comment.
obviously to be smart
Sure,
and stay away from big
sure.
crowds and don't do things like that. Dallas Quinley, especially because you get fined for it too. I think Juju said what he missed a COVID test, you get $50,000 fine. So good incentive to be smart. Dallas Quinley, why did the Steelers settle on Rudolph as a backup and not go after a veteran or Ben's replacement? A lot of reasons, financial reasons for sure, some availability concerns, and just there weren't any. I mean, there were some backup options, but really no Ben replacement type options. And I would just say is that they still have confidence in Rudolph, right or wrong. They have a lot of confidence in him. They want to see how he improved from a terrible 2019 season. And so they wanted to let him be the backup. Because if you sign somebody else and Mason's now the number three, you probably never find out what you have in this guy. So again, right or wrong, they want to find out what they have in this guy. And the only way to do that is to make him the direct backup to Big Ben.
And as we said all offseason, it's no surprise. I mean, dating back, you could tell that this team has confidence in Rudolph. Okay, uh, and on top of everything else, they didn't have the cap money to go after anybody else anyway. And if they would have, then that would you might as well just go ahead and pull the string on Rudolph at that point. There, that this team has stated since the end of last season that they have confidence in Rudolph that Rudolph is going to be the backup for this team. So there it is in the story. I mean, the only way you're going to Monday morning quarterback that is if something happens to Ben Roethlisberger and Mason Rudolph has to play considerable time. Other than if he plays well, great, it was the right decision. If he doesn't, then the criticism is going to come from all different angles. Then at that point, but you cannot call it the wrong decision unless you see see him play this year.
Right, right, absolutely. And hopefully we do not see Mason Rudolph play this year. Andre said, "Hey Alex, I get why NHL NBA bubble format won't work, but why is it not possible for each team to stay in their city's hotel and only leave the hotel when they play or practice? Thanks." I know that some teams were doing that during training camp. I believe the Saints, for example, were. Is that possible? Sure. I mean, I don't see any reason why it couldn't be possible. You're just trying to walk that line between these guys have families, they have homes, obviously, and respecting that versus the balance of you want to be smart about not having outbreaks and exposure and things like that. So I'm sure that wouldn't be popular if players were forced to do that for that length of time, too. Obviously, for many many months straight in hotels and accessibility and things like that are concerns. So I understand the question. It is possible, but I don't think that's really preferred unless the league really felt like they had to do that. Do you have any reason why a hotel format may or may not work, Dave?
Just logistics and I mean time. I mean, it's just so many people involved in this too. This it just like I understand the NHL. I think just logistics and everything that goes along with it makes it incredibly tough. I was surprised the NHL was able to pull it off, but
Hmm.
the way that they did, I think there's just so many factors and cost and just so many things that go along with it. So it's not surprising. It's so hard. It would be so hard and inexpensive to have an NFL bubble for all 32 teams.
Question from Dallas. It seems Devin Bush has taken a step back, or at least not moving forward. Is he a number two middle linebacker, or will he eventually be the starter over Vince Williams soon? I'm not sure about the actual question. He is a starter next to Vince Williams in base and in nickel, and he's the linebacker in every down situation and also in dime packages on third and long. So he is the starter over Vince Williams. To the point about has he taken a step back or not moving forward. I know it hasn't been spectacular and splashy, and there are certainly elements of his game I still want to see him improve upon, but I don't think it's been nearly as bad. I think we got spoiled a bit by Minka and Bush making a ton of splash plays early last season, and there are going to be ebbs and flows to that. I think overall, Bush has played well. He's a central communicator. He's wearing the green dot. He's shouldering that responsibility, seeming to do pretty good job with it. He's an every down, 100 snap or 100% of the snap kind of guy. And so I think there are some intangible things that Devin Bush is doing and appearing to do well that don't really show up on the stat sheet.
What is he not doing that people want him to do?
That's a good question.
People will look at the glaring thing. I think will people in their heads right now is the game against Denver and a couple of the tight end situations. Now, obviously, before this year, look, his big one of the big knocks on him so far coming out of his rookie year was covering tight ends, middle of the field type situations, and especially zone type situation, just kind of being out there, kind of lost somewhat. It seemed like. Now we saw him make run with a tight end in that game against the Texans, right,
Hmm.
and make a good play in the end zone on there. Obviously, you got to put him in some better situations. Now we still don't entirely know what happened on that bust on the Noah Fant touchdown against the Broncos. We think we know. Keith Butler wants us to believe that it was a missed blitz and all like that, but even so, whether it be schematics or whatnot, there was no way the way Bush was lined up with that kind of leverage. Uh, that play was not reliant on him. If that play was indeed a blitz, that play is reliant on the blitzer getting home more so than it is Bush being in tight coverage on that play. So I think
Hmm.
what we have here right now with Bush so far and people wanting to analyze and say he's not playing well, it's a results biased type of analysis based on him giving up a couple of pass completions to a tight end.
Yeah, in my opinion, again, while we do not know, my belief is that it was only supposed to be a blitzer on that play against Noah Fant, and that Bush is basically on his own on that play because it happened, I think, a time before and a time after too. And Bush is on his own on that play, just a difficult spot to be in leverage wise. All right, next question here comes from where I just had it and I just lost it. Dallas also asks, "Is Mike Hilton a must resign after this year?" I love Mike Hilton, been a big fan of him for a long time. Love the underdog story. I would love to be able to resign Mike Hilton, but I do not think it's reality. I think it's much more likely they resign Cam Sutton and Mike Hilton is playing elsewhere in 2021.
Boy, you
KJ.
hate to hate to see him go, but
Mm-hmm.
man, you want to talk about a bulldog when you want to talk about a, yeah, as important as a guy like Vince Williams, how he kind of brings an attitude and kind of a tone setter to that defense. So does Mike Hilton, man. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a slot corner. It's been numerous years since I've seen a nickel corner be able to play both the run and the pass like he does. And boy, you want to talk about he'll sniff a screen out on, and he did in that game against I think that was his lone tackle for loss in that game against the Texans as well too. The problem is you can't pay them all, man. And if anybody right now the way he's played the last couple of years is due 8 million plus per season. It's him,
Mm-hmm.
and the Steelers just are not going to be able to afford it. You just can't pay them all, you know.
Yeah, yeah, definitely will not be able to pay him, but he deserves to get paid and will get paid probably somewhere else. Russ Obenstein. Hey, Russ, Alex, and Dave. Do you think the Browns' play will help Steelers step it up on offense? I hope they tear the Eagles up, live an hour and 15 from Philly. No, I mean, short answer, I don't think the Steelers need to be motivated by Cleveland, but obviously the Browns are capable of putting up points, and so that game may be a little bit more high scoring. Hopefully it isn't. Hopefully the Steelers defense can be steady against the run as they have been the first 3 weeks and really make the Browns more one dimensional. But I will say that, yeah, the Steelers offense will have to show that they can put up 30 plus because, again, to beat Baltimore, to beat Kansas City, to win some of these higher scoring games, there will be times where your offense has to put up some big points. Next question here is from Frat Boy Fishing. Why is Tyson Alualu all of a sudden an all pro player? That's a good question. He has definitely found the fountain of youth. I think he's always been a really technical guy against the run with great strengths and leverage and vision and just overall technique. He's getting good coaching from Carl Dunbar, who I think is a seriously underrated coach, not only in Pittsburgh, but in the NFL overall, and someone I believe that deserves to be, considered to be a defensive coordinator somewhere in football. I think he's just kind of at home there, and he is going against some smaller centers. Facing guards and tackles. He's a little bit on the smaller side, so getting with a better size matchup along the interior probably helps him. But yeah, he's really done well against some favorable matchups. To be fair, with Nick Gates and Lloyd Cushenberry, but he's been excellent, and I'll take it.
Yeah, you can't control who you go against,
Hmm.
but he certainly has. I mean, he's dominated that competition even more than. Look, I was a little bit concerned coming out of the shoot during the offseason after losing Javon Hargrave, wondering about all this talk about Alu moving to the middle. He's done fine to date. Let's just hope it continues. And if it does, I think you got to find a way, maybe for the NFL minimum. Hopefully, Alu will decide that he wants to play one more year after this year. Maybe you can keep him around to kind of help that transformation to who's it going to be? Is it going to be Carlos Davis? It's obviously it's that kind of guy that you think might have a shot there, but you might still need a little cushion. In year number two for a guy like that. But Alu is really he's had some great what they call it, snatch and pull and swim moves. I mean, he's really done the whole gamut there up front against some of these centers and guards in the league through the first few games. As long as he stays healthy, man, that base defense is going to be murder to run
Hmm.
against.
Yeah, and it has been so far. And so I'm not asking too many questions. I'm just excited that the dude's playing well and the Steelers' run defense is tops in football. Todd Williams. Hello, guys. Thanks for taking my question. With Hilton and Sutton most likely gone, what are you hearing about Justin Lane? Not a whole lot. He's still been working as a starting gunner on special teams and done reasonably well there, but obviously the guy has yet to play a snap defensively. So we're not hearing a whole lot about Lane, and he wouldn't be a good replacement for Hilton or Sutton because Lane is an outside corner. Hilton and Sutton are slot corners, so you wouldn't be replacing them. But I don't really know a whole lot about Justin Lane as he's entering his sophomore season.
Yeah, we just haven't seen him play. I mean, can't. I mean, and obviously, Alex not having access to training camp or anything like that. I mean, there's nothing new other than special team stuff. That's all we have to go on.
Yeah, absolutely. Dallas has Benny Snell going to lose carries to McFarland as the season goes on. I think it's more of a situational thing where you'll see Snell in short yardage, goal line situations. I think you've already seen some of that. So yeah, I mean McFarland working his way into the lineup will limit snap counts and play time and inevitably carries from guys like Benny Snell and Jalen Samuels. But I do think they can um, splice it up, situationally where Snell is playing in his certain situations that make him thrive. McFarland plays in other situations. So I don't think it'll be necessarily a one-to-one thing, if that makes sense, Dallas. All right. Let's see. Desmond had a question. JJ plays with his brothers next year if released. I don't think Watt's getting released, but I know you had a tweet that got pretty popular on Twitter about trying to convince JJ to come to Pittsburgh, join his brothers.
Yeah, that's not. I mean, it was all in jest. I need to start adding some sort of sarcasm.
Yeah, some
People
people took
take,
that seriously. They were like, "Why do
yeah,
you hate Cam Hayward and Stephon Tuitt?" And that was some responses you got.
yeah. Just look, it was a joke, people. Hey, they can't. I mean, JJ's set to earn what 15 million this year, and if you
Mhm.
take the games off, and he's still owed like 11 or 12 or something million. There's just no way that's going to work. And plus, what he's scheduled to make next year, there's just no way that you're going to make that work. And no, the Texans are not going to eat a big chunk of his salary just to trade him off and that kind of stuff. So it was a joke, people. JJ Watt's not going to be a member of the Steelers. Uh, he's got about as good of a chance of being a Steeler than Sam Darnold does. How about that?
There you go. What is it?
None.
6-0 Kansas City up on New England. I don't have the game turned on. I'm just looking at scores on my
Yep,
phone.
six
Well, low
nothing.
scoring. That's interesting. All right, next question here comes from Mark Leslie. Once Ben retires, do you think Mason Rudolph will be our starting quarterback, or do you see us drafting a long-term quarterback for the future? I hope. I'll put it this way: I hope Ben plays long enough that like Mason's contract runs up and he goes somewhere else just because his contract is up. So hopefully Ben keeps playing through like 2022, and that kind of makes it takes a decision out of Pittsburgh's hands. So short answer, Mark, I would probably say the Steelers' long-term quarterback is not on this roster right now.
The best thing for everybody to do right now is to circle late February, early March on their calendars right now, because that's the key date when it comes to Roethlisberger potentially signing another extension because he is due a huge roster bonus right after the start of the new league year in March. So uh, we're going to learn a lot about what's going to happen at the quarterback position for the next couple of years in February or March. Obviously, if they don't extend Roethlisberger at that time, then it becomes a fantastic shot that that 2021 would be Roethlisberger's last year, unless they decide to go franchise tag after that. Okay, I have a feeling. And to hear the way Ben talked earlier in the offseason, as long as Ben has a good season, this season, he's going to want to stick around. So I would, where we sit 3 games into this thing right now, I would bet that Ben signs an extension in February or March. And then when it gets to that, but Rudolph's final year is what, next season? 2021, right?
Right.
All right. So, unless he's going to come back in 2022 for near minimum or test free, odds are Rudolph will be flying the coop after the 2021 season
Hmm.
if Ben is re-signed. So then you go back into the draft and you draft another second, third round quarterback or whatnot, and kind of go from there again. So. Uh, circle late February, March. That's the best time to ask these kind of questions. Right now, it's not.
Was this from Russ? Yeah. Russ Obenstein says, Dave, have you changed your mind on Steelers not re signing Vince after way he is playing next season? I assume
Well,
that.
Vince is under contract,
Right.
so there is no re-signing him. It comes down to whether or not you're going to want to keep him at the salary that he's set to earn. Russ, it's not about re-signing him because he's under contract, and that's the discussion that Alex and I have had quite a bit over the last couple of months here when talking about Steelers and their 2021 cap situation. Let me throw the question back to the people in the chat. If I gave you a chance to retain Juju with a $6 million something cap hit, based on kind of the contract that Alex and I talked about on the Monday podcast, would you be willing to cut Vince
Mm.
in a moment's notice to do that? And I bet there's a lot of people typing in yes on the chat right now. Now, I'm not saying that that's going to be an option here, but look, here this team is going to have issues getting cap compliant next year, no matter what the cap number is. 198.2 or 175 million, whatever that number is. The Steelers are going to have to make some moves here. Okay, Vince Williams at $4 million base salary right now looks like an easy adjust. Okay, and by adjust I mean you either terminate his contract or you go to him and say, look, if you want to play one more year, you're going to have to take we're going to have to lower your salary to the minimum there. I think he's a fantastic guy. I think he plays against the run fantastic. I think he's a tone setter, yada yada. But this is an economics decision more so than it is a football player decision.
Yeah, I hear you. It could be one of those very difficult situations where, in order to get cap compliant or maybe make and get an extension done with someone like Juju, you may have to make a hard decision somewhere else. But it would really suck to see Vince get cut because he's playing at a really high level, and it would make this team worse from a losing Vince Williams standpoint, makes your team worse standpoint.
He's not a spring chicken either. At some point, Father Time's still undefeated, and he is 30 years old. He'll be 31 in December.
Hmm.
Okay, so
But it's not like he runs 4.44. I mean, it's I think
no,
his
no,
skill set will remain longer than others.
right, and it's not like 4 million is a lot of money, but 4 million is a lot of money right now when you're looking at the cap situation of 2021 Steelers.
Hmm. Good question here from Andresa. What's your favorite Steelers offensive and defensive formations this year? You pick one, I'll pick the other, Dave. What's your favorite offense or defense formation?
Anything that involves the guards pulling, running some sort of counter or the power. I like kind of those. I like the bunch sets to the side,
Hmm.
along with the tight end on the end of the line of scrimmage there, and a single back. How about that?
All right, I like it. Defense.
11 personnel with a bunch set.
I like it. Defense, I would say I've come to really warm up to the Steelers over front, where they see that against multiple two, three tight end sets, where they get the D end on the tight end in a lot of cases, and just kind of really wreak a lot of havoc that way. I think that's been used in small doses, and it's obviously game flow dependent and dependent on what the offense does, what their personnel is. But I think that's been highly effective over the past few seasons.
What's your favorite offensive formation,
Hmm.
Alex?
I mean, they're not as creative. It's not like we're watching a Kansas City or San Francisco that gives me a whole lot of options. I mean, they are relatively vanilla 11 personnel, or, they'll come in tight with an extra offensive lineman. And in terms of formations, they're not lining up in anything super creative. So I don't know. I'm trying to think of just a formation that was different, that was effective, and nothing's coming to mind right now, to be honest with you. All right. Good question, though, Andres. I do like that one. I'll have to chew on it some more. Russ is asking who's leading the team in tackles, Bush or Edmonds. I'm not sure. Do we know is leading this team in tackles? It's probably one of those guys.
Let's see. I know Mike Hilton's got like 20 total. Was he? I don't think he's
I
leading the
can
team though. I'll pull it
pull
up
it.
while
I'll
you
pull it
go
up
here.
here on Pro Football Reference. Yeah, we'll see. I'm not sure who is leading. I mean, it might be Hilton, might be Bush, might be Edmonds.
I got 20 total tackles from Mike Hilton. I got Bush second at 18 total tackles
Okay, and
according to the NFL sites.
no, yeah, they PFR has Hilton with 21, Bush at 18, Edmonds at 16. So about the same.
One of those of Mike Hilton's is special teams tackles. I'm going defensive tackles. He's got
Okay,
20 total defensive tackles, and Mike Hilton has one special teams tackle for a total of 21. Devin Bush has 18, and no special teams tackles, of course. So
right.
Mike Hilton officially 20 defensive tackles leads the defense.
Frat Boy Fishing, just a couple minutes left before we wrap up the stream. Will the Steelers ever use Cam Sutton or Justin Lane? I mean, Sutton still is used in dime, and if there's an injury happens, I think at slot or on the outside, you're going to see Sutton's expand role big time. So I think Sutton has a clear role right now. And Justin Lane, again, it would take an injury to happen, and so I'm rooting against Justin Lane being seen, just because that means the team stayed healthy. So that's Lane's situation right now, is just behind Joe Hayden and Steven Nelson.
Let's see, Sutton against the Tech. He played 14 defensive snaps in that game. You know, that's about what you were kind of calling for, I think, right? About 30% of the snaps per game.
Yeah, I think they were 18% last year in terms of dime usage. They were around 33 to 35% 2 years ago. I thought the number would come up. Again, it is game flow dependent. They've had the lead in all three games. Teams have had to play catch up, so that does invite more dime defense. But that sounds about right.
Yeah, and I'm not. You know, I think I'll be just fine if I don't see Justin Lane in the game this year
Hmm.
unless it's a blowout.
For
No
sure.
offense to him, but you know, the only way he's going to be getting into some games is some injuries happen. And I'd rather not. You know, might we get to that point? Maybe, but I'm. It's not something that I'm going to stress over not seeing him play if I don't have to.
Amen to that. Mark Leslie, can you explain the different roles, positions that are on special teams other than the obvious kickers, punters? Yeah, there's a whole bunch of them. We could spend another hour talking about that. I think the next most important one, besides the snapper, is the personal protector on the punt team, the up back, the guy that is off center to the right behind Cam Candidate, kind of behind the right guard. So he's the guy that's the quarterback of that unit. He helps align everybody, will have help with the snap count, help with the blocking schemes, point out any other blitzes or anything like that. So that personal protector spot, currently held by Jordan Dangerfield, number 37, is a very important one to know on the punting team. And then other ones, you could do the gunners and jammers. Gunners are the guys on the outside on the punt team. The jammers are the ones on the punt return team, not allowing the gunner to make plays. So I could go down a whole laundry list of L1 and R1 on the kickoff team and stuff like that. But I think I just kind of hopefully gave you the basics there, Mark. Russ,
You had an interesting stat as far as some special team wide receivers today, didn't you?
yeah, one I didn't really expect to come up with. According to at least StatHead, and their tackles are a little bit tricky, but we know Chase Claypool had 3 tackles in week 2 on special teams versus Denver. Since in the Kevin Colbert era, 2000 to present day, only 2 receivers, Steelers receivers, have had at least three special teams tackles in a game. That is Chase Claypool in week 2 and Sammy Coates in 2016. So Claypool making just as much of an impact on special teams as he is on offense.
He is officially credited by the NFL with being in on 4 total special teams tackles, 1 tackle and 3 assists. Chase Claypool
For the season.
for the season.
Yeah, he's been, and again, the Denver game, he was all over the place. So very good start, and again, not a surprise because you watch him at Notre Dame, even his senior season as a starting receiver, he was still a gunner, and I think those things have really helped him prepare and be ready for the NFL. Russ Obenstein with a super chat. Thank you so much, Russ. He says, "Just big thanks. How amazing you guys were getting us through off season, and now you're the best in your staff. Really appreciate it, Russ. That you've been here for many of these live streams. So thank you for the super chat and being here with us."
Absolutely, thank you for that. And boy, there was it was touch and go for a little while there, not having, not 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 having. Look, to make things even worse, the Steelers obviously didn't have a first round pick, so that kept that all these mock drafts that we normally write about and we complain about and take issue with and bitch about and say these people don't know what they're doing. We weren't even able to write about none of that because obviously the Steelers didn't have a first round pick and thus a lot of these mock drafts coming out, we couldn't discuss those kind of things. And then we none of the pro days. Alex and I overanalyzed to see who we can find out which coaches and personnel members were there. All that was off, and obviously no pre-draft visits, and just it made for let's not do that again.
hmm Dallas Quinley, if Ben signs new contract, does Rudolph demand a trade? I don't think Rudolph has a lot of power to demand much of anything right now, even if
No,
he knows
no.
that he won't have much of an opportunity in Pittsburgh.
No, he will play out his contract in 2021 and then hit free agency and uh, probably get a job elsewhere
hmm
if that's the way things transpire.
Yeah, don't imagine there'll be a big clamoring for Mason Rudolph if he demands a trade out of Pittsburgh anyway. K Jackson, Pittsburgh, the Steelers O line versus the Gravedigger and the Eagles D line. Who wins? That's going to be the matchup to watch for sure. I mean, because the Eagles' strength is in the trenches defensively with Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave and Brandon Graham's been criminally underrated for several seasons now against the Steelers' offensive line. So that's going to be the $1 million question, K Jackson. If I think who's going to win this game on Sunday.
And Fletcher Cox has always been one of those few guys in the league that's David DeCastro, what I call David DeCastro kryptonite.
For sure, good point. So yeah, that'll be the battle. I mean, I'll give maybe the edge to Philadelphia right now, but yeah, if that's going to be the determining factor in this game.
This, fortunately, though, will probably be the last time we see DeCastro versus Fletcher Cox.
True, very true. Speaking of the Castro, Dallas is also asking, what's the contract situation on the Castro? Dave, I'll defer to you on that one.
1 year left on his contract next year, but I think what you're going to end up seeing with David DeCastro, because predictably so, as I predicted all offseason, he was going to be one of the guys that they restructured late. They did that, and with that, it gives you the sense that they did so knowing that they want to extend him in 2021. I think it now just becomes an issue of timing and when that happens. This team's going to need some cap space. So, uncharacteristically, we could see a guy like, go on, Rex Burkhead, you go get me some fantasy points. I think you'll see David DeCastro sign an extension and next offseason. I think it might be sooner rather than later. And by sooner rather than later, I mean well before training camp gets underway.
All right, be on the lookout for that. We have another super chat from Steeler fan 1933. He says 44 watching, only 13 likes. Let's do better, Steelers Nation. Thanks, Alex and Dave. Keep up the good work. Thank you so much for the super chat, Steeler fan. Yeah, be sure to like the stream if you would like to. We'd appreciate that. Certainly helps out visibility for YouTube. And Steeler fan, I should have another Out of the Park episode probably tomorrow or the next day. So I know you watch that series, so be on the lookout for that. Couple more questions here. Rick McKee has a really good answer to the best offensive formation one. He said the best offensive formation is late game kneel down. That's
Oh,
that's
there you
that's a good
go.
answer.
The victory, the
Hmm.
victory. There you go.
Victory formation. No one did the victory formation with Dotson out last week against Denver. I was mad. Someone's got to step that one up. OOF3R. What do you think our record is going to be this year? I think Dave and I are probably in the same camp we were to begin the year. Probably in that. Well, you said what, Dave? I said 11-5. What did you say? 12 and
I
4.
think I said 12-4. I went out of the box this year.
And you
Uh,
sticking by 12 and 4?
Yeah, yeah. They're looking good so far. Just like that offense to play a little bit better, but and obviously the defense as well too. I didn't, I thought the defense would be playing a little bit better than what they're playing now, but it's not awful. I think there's room for improvement on both sides of the football right now, and I like where they are. So I'll stick with 12-4 still.
And I will stick with my 11-5. Probably last question we'll get to here for today's stream comes from Young Whitey. I'm sorry if you have already answered this question. I just got here. Do you think we'll move on from Connor? Almost certainly. I really can't see a scenario where Connor returns. He is playing well this year. He's healthy, so thank goodness for that. But just as Dave's word, the fungibility of the position, all the other free agent this team has to turn their attention to first, the cap situation, getting cap compliant. Just don't see a scenario where Connor resigns unless it would somehow be at a deep, deep hometown discount.
Absolutely. It'd have to be near minimum 1 year deal kind of thing. And unfortunately, it would have to come on the heels of him maybe getting hurt again. And, just the kind of stuff that for he's such a fine kid, you don't want, off to a decent start so far, kind of stuff that you don't want to root for. So you just have to think there's going to be somebody out there maybe willing to give him, I don't know, 3, 4, assuming he stays healthy and puts up, I don't know, 1,500 total yards from scrimmage this year. Probably somebody out there willing to give him 3, 4, $5 million a season.
Yep, but will not be the Steelers. Russ Openstein, guys, would you agree with me that Filer is improving in run blocking? I don't know if that means is Filer improving his run blocking or is Filer being moved to guard and it's improving the run game overall. But as I did a film room of, and I know you watched that, Russ, that the even-handedness of the ability to pull Filer or DeCastro now after, as opposed to really just pulling the Castro in the Foster years, I think it's made this run game more versatile and more balanced, which has been really important.
And that's something we said all throughout the offseason we were excited about. No offense to Ramon Foster, as I just say several times. Ramon Foster made a lot of non-believers out of his ability to pull from left to right. Now, it's not something that he did 15 times a game or even 3 times a game, but when he did it, it was effective. It was just something that you really couldn't count on being kind of pull ambidextrous, if you will, or as I like to say, amphibious, which is it's an inside joke there. But anyway, the ability now to be able to take these guards and go either direction with them is something to behold. And I think Fighter is very good on the move. And we didn't get to see a lot of that, obviously, throughout his career, other than, say, a couple preseason snaps here and there. But the transition from tackle to guard outside of pass protection hiccups here and there, I think it's gone good for him. So I'm excited to see more of Foster on the move from left to right moving forward.
Yeah, and they pulled Filer early and often in that win over Houston to a lot of success, including James Conner's game-winning 12-yard touchdown. So that'll wrap up the stream. Marjorie Geyer was also here saying thank you for being here as always. Appreciate everybody who stopped by, donated a super chat, asked some questions. Dave and I appreciate it. Go back and listen to the archive of this on SteelersDepot.com, and we will return next Monday with a game to talk about as the Steelers will take on the Eagles Sunday afternoon. So, Dave Bryan, as always, thank you for being here.
Great job, Alex. I appreciate it. Thank you for everybody that showed up tonight, and peace and love to everybody.
All right, thank you guys. We will be back in a week. So, thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll talk to you soon.